everybody's blessing. Get things going. Have you had a chance to look at the minutes that have been sent out? Linda, I want to thank you for the beautiful job of putting the minutes together. Do we have a motion to accept the minutes as they are read?
Motion.
Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion, a second to accept the minutes as read. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We're going to get into the information requested by the committee. Again, Linda, Dottie, you guys have been a godsend for us. I've worked with them, been down to Canaries. Thank you for your time, stuff like that. There was 3 sections of information that was requested. Francis, you ended up having a question on the form-based code. And so, Dottie, you want to spend a little time on that?
Form-based codes are a little bit different than traditional zoning and land use in that they're more, their focus is to regulate development to achieve a specific urban form. And they look at how buildings are developed in relation to one another. And so they basically came about because of problems that were created by conventional zoning, having to do with urban sprawl and lack of walkable communities, and creating communities that were totally vehicle dependent. So they're really kind of a throwback to the way that towns used to be developed. They look at usually the relationship between building facades and public areas, and they dictate scale and types of streets and blocks. Whereas conventional zoning focuses on segregation of land uses and usually arbitrary development standards like setbacks, floor area ratio, this kind of thing. Form-based codes have a regulating plan. They have public space standards and building form standards, and they usually include things like maximum building setbacks as opposed to minimum buildings, because they like to keep the street or the buildings close to the street. And they have usually minimum window space on facades, maximum building height standards, requirements for on-street parking, street trees, street furniture, etc. Sometimes they have architectural, landscaping, and signage standards as well. And probably one of the first examples, and maybe one of the best known, is Seaside, which is a community up in the Panhandle. If you're familiar with that, that was a completely new planned community using form-based code. So it creates a very different look to a community than conventional zoning. So, is there any questions about that?
So, when I think of Duane, I think of Seaside.
Right.
That was form-based. So, is it fair to assume Celebration is form-based?
Yes, I would say.
Is Baldwin Park?
Probably. I think Eustis is the only city that I'm aware of.
That's using it.
County that's using it.
How long have they been using
Eustis, only a few years, let's say 4 years maybe.
Pardon?
Do you know how long Eustis has
how long
had
is
it?
it?
I don't know when they did it.
About when I left, so I was about 6 years.
6 years. But the new buildings that they just built down there, if you notice how well they are integrated in with the older historic buildings, that's really a result of using form-based code.
Catherine, we have it.
Francis, let me talk to you. Form-based code was coming into use as you left in the planning department. Do you have any opinions? I think there's a lot of Duane, traditional neighborhood design, mixed use I like. But I think that there's some shortcomings. Any comments about form-based code?
Well, I was completely new thing to me when I was there, so I was just getting the feel of understanding it. And talking to Dottie, it was that this is more the way a lot of the cities are going now. Rather than calling it a traditional neighborhood,
Right.
they are going more with the form-based code.
Right.
And how many, do you know what, I know you used to they were telling us a lot of other municipalities that had used, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I got to do some research and there's probably 5 or 6 cities in Florida that they mentioned specifically. St. Lucie County's doing it. I think there's some areas in Miami that are doing it.
Oh, Miami.
Yeah.
Oh, Naples, yes, Naples.
I think there were several right around here too.
Really? Like in the Orlando area? Yeah.
Is Winter Park?
I don't remember. I may be able to do some research and see if I can find out.
Yeah, I think Winter Park probably would be
Right.
trying to keep their historic down here.
Where would you find the information on, say, maximums and restrictions and things like that?
Specific, you kind of write your own code, but, you know, the idea is to keep the buildings up to the street, have on-street parking, have public spaces, a lot of no blank walls, you know, you want window spaces in front. So it's really more about the feel of the community, the pedestrian scale, and the development that would encourage people to gather and walk, and, you know, rather than have to be in your car.
If I might add something, actually, my firm is doing a building up in Gainesville, and you have pretty much this exact thing. This is their Gainesville code, which I scanned and can share it, but I got it printed out. But this is just the first page. If you just want to take a quick look at that, it's basically got what to do for a traditional city and what not to do.
Right.
Buildings up to the street.
Right.
You know, a lot of windows, that type of thing.
Right.
Facades.
Dottie and Francis, the planners I talked to have indicated that form-based code is up and coming, and it would be very relevant if we had many historic sites here, because we would try to replicate that. But given what we have here, the form-based code probably should not be our goal. Is that a fair professional assumption?
Why are you saying that?
Because they do a lot of form-based code where there's a lot of historic sites. You know, you've got an old general store that's been there, 100 years. But we really don't have a lot of historic-based structures here that we want to be replicating the motif, the facade.
I don't know, I mean, all the Sam-Stoltz homes that were out there, when we were
The
talking
what?
about the last meeting, Sam-Stoltz, the architecture.
Yeah.
You know, with the
Yeah, but we're talking about a Main Street district. I agree with the residential aspects, but, on Main Street, and I don't know where Matt is, I say this respectfully to Matt, but I'm not sure, he's got a beautiful business, I'm a great patron of this business, but we certainly don't want to have a community that's predicated on that motif.
Right.
But can't we as a committee decide on one? And
Yes.
make sure that we follow that?
Yeah,
in a way
but that is more in the LDRs, is it not, as opposed to our form-based code. So, in the land design regulations, LDRs, we then have the opportunity, instead of going to form-based code, we get to sit back and say, do we want to have a meaningful, let's say, cracker architectural style, or facades, as opposed to depending on form-based code to tell us. Is that fair?
Or you could just incorporate some elements of it.
Right.
If you want to encourage on-street parking or
Right.
whatever, commercial business, without going to the full, full blown.
Well, and that's why the last time, one thing I brought up was, you don't want to leave something out. For instance, it's important to have the curbs are minimized, the radius of a curb is minimized, so it helps with pedestrians. And when we start picking and choosing, are we going to eliminate something, leave out something very important, that's curb cuts. So that's why I brought up form-based code, because it's comprehensive.
Right.
But are you saying that it's saying something about an architectural style, selecting an architectural style.
No, what I'm saying is the few, and I emphasize this, land planners I've talked to have said to me, Tim, if you were doing this project in Winter Park, form-based code is very appropriate because you want to replicate and make sure that the integrity of design, the characteristics that you've grown to know is retained and or replicated. We don't have a lot of that out here. So we can still do beautiful design, but it's going to be in the land design regulations that will be empowering versus utilizing, the other.
Well, and I don't know, based on the community and just the research and the history that I've looked at, with the two communities wanting to have their distinct identity and still, looking at, the little Italy, a little Switzerland type feel, I still think that that would be pulled into the Main Street too, rather than just the residential. I don't know. So that seems to me that was kind of apart, from, the typical, what's typically out there, because you got the sister cities, so I don't know if that's the general consensus or feel, but that's the historical research that I had done, to find all of that information out. That would still, I think, tie into the form-based code also.
Yeah.
Speaking of the two distinct areas, I've been giving that some thought and haven't concluded anything yet.
Yeah.
But like the Golden Triangle,
Right.
there's always the three main cities. I've been thinking that it would be a good thing if we could come up with a name for this area, that would encompass it. And then they would say, oh, we're going to, and they wouldn't have to say Sorrento, Mount Plymouth, or East Lake County, something that would embody what we wanted to.
We could call it the Far East.
Right. I don't know.
I think once we start looking at the photos and talking about the goals, there'll be more discussion about the specific elements.
Right. All right, so you want to go into the Main Street?
I was asked about the Florida Main Street program. This program is administered through the State of Florida Bureau of Historic Preservation for traditional historic commercial areas. And the program offers technical assistance and training, but it's applicable only to communities with those historic resources sufficient to create a well-defined sense of place and a tangible link to the past. That's how they describe it. There's an application process you have to go through, and if you're approved for the Main Street designation, you have to hire a full-time downtown manager, and establish a Main Street board, and develop a local program for revitalization. And you have to raise the necessary funding, through the community. So it probably wouldn't be applicable to this area, because it's very much based on historic preservation of existing structures.
Catherine, I think that was one of your questions, was it not?
It was.
Are you comfortable with that answer?
I am. Yeah, there may be a time when it may be more appropriate
Okay.
if the program's still available.
Right. Okay. Johnny?
And the last question was about State Road 46. I talked to Jim Stuyvesant, who's the Public Works Director for the county, and, there is a plan to turn that over to the county once the Beltway is completed, and it will become a county road. Probably the only thing that DOT will do to that road before they turn it over is to resurface it. The question about sidewalks came up, and ironically, because of the classification of the road as a state road and the speed limit, it would not normally qualify for sidewalks under the DOT's program. But once they turn it over to the county, more than likely the speed will be reduced because it's not going to be the main,
Right.
artery. And then it would be eligible to apply for DOT sidewalk grant funding. So once they turn it over, there's a possibility the county could go after some grant funding to put sidewalks
Even though it's a county road, it will be DOT funded possible.
through their grant program.
Okay.
Scotty, the only my question on that would be, they put sidewalks in it, not basic, Pine Lakes on 44,
Yeah,
State Road,
yeah,
same speed,
right. I don't know.
didn't fit, but anyway.
Right, I mean, that was the answer I got, so, I guess the bottom line is they haven't agreed to to put any sidewalks.
No, I don't think they will.
But it's not gonna be turned over till like 2021. There's a lot of time too.
Speaking of
Work on that.
46, you know, you get a lot of traffic. How is the traffic going to go through to the other side if they're still not using 46?
To the other side.
The bypass.
Well, I
Will
know,
be a
but they're gonna go this way around, if they're gonna go that way.
Well, that's what you know, 46. You know, it just depends on, I guess, where.
Local traffic is going to use what is now State Road 46. Through traffic, we use the
You think Seminole will use it?
The Seminole will use the Wakava Parkway, and the reason for that is it's going to be, what is now State Road 46 will have a lot of roundabouts and stuff like that. So you're not going to want to get on State Road 46, go from Seminole County to...
I know if we slow it down, I would.
It's going to be real slow
A lot
down.
of times, I can't even get out of my street sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
I have to wait for them to.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
traffic light stop.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Picture that some of that road will be a 6-lane road at the other end of 46,
Right.
so that's a really attractive way for people to go.
Right.
And not
Will it
have-
be a toll car?
On that section, I don't think you can.
I don't think
so.
It's not until you get to the county line that I understand is told, the Orange County line. Is that true, Kathleen Dowdy?
As far as I know.
Yeah, that's at the Orange County line, I think it becomes a toll.
And I know that there was some concern when talking about the roundabout, you know, and the slower traffic for the parents that commute through the area to
Right.
get to 429 and to get to work, you know,
Right.
do those things. So I think that there needs to be some more discussion, you know, about the roundabout.
Yeah, that's, and, you know, you're right, Christine, is some strengths to it and the weaknesses to it. The weaknesses is it's gonna be more time consuming to go from, let's say, MERS to get on the Wakaiva Parkway. But that's the shortcut. The benefit to it is it's not gonna be a through road. You know, people are gonna sit back and say, well, if I really want to get on the Wakaiva Parkway from MERS, maybe I'll just head south and get on, you know, Kelly Park.
From a business standpoint, that's a concern.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I know the businesses along there, and what we're trying to do is attract businesses to the area. And I think that if you're going to reduce speeds and then you're also putting in roundabouts and making it
Yeah.
not as accessible for people, that you're going to deter from these businesses.
But you're a destination, so people will
Right.
get in their car or they will walk, kids.
Right,
Because
but
guess
not all
what?
businesses are, though.
Right, yeah, right, yeah, right. But you are definitely a destination, so, yeah. If this committee is comfortable, and if this community is comfortable, we're going to change the agenda a little bit, and Dottie is going to, what reflects as item number 5, we're going to go into that, and we will then go back to review of draft proposals. Any objections to that? We're going to look at some photos. Before we get going on photos, again, I am going to encourage people at our next meeting, go to communities. All of you have gone to a particular place. I don't care if it's Naples or wherever, and you've said, you know, there's something I like about this, and it's signage, it's roads, it's plants, it's whatever. Do that between now and our next meeting, because really a lot of what we design is going to be a byproduct of what we see, and say, well, I really like this about that, but I don't like the other.
Turn the dim lights.
Dim the lights.
Thank you to Tim and Thomas for the photographs.
Okay, yeah, and I push it, right, Linda?
We're talking about that one first.
Okay.
Is that document?
Yeah, I think that's good. Dottie?
Okay, the first one is, I believe it's,
Water.
downtown Winter Garden.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can see here, I think it helps, yeah.
Yeah, good.
You can see the sidewalks are very wide. There's, to the right there is some public space. There's the defining brick wall there. They've kind of kept the brick theme of the buildings and the streets. Looks like there's a festival going on. So you can see it's a good public gathering space.
To the right, see the palm trees on the right? There's a splash park. So a lot of times young children, when I took these photos, there were, I don't know, literally 50, maybe 70 children playing in the splash park. And so the adults were down at these tents, and I think it was some kind of an art and craft show. So it was a nice place for the adults to be able to get together and enjoy, and the kids be in the splash park. There was live music, and the other thing is the brick streets. Those people that were raised in Central Florida understand that that is a traffic calming device. You don't get to go 35 miles an hour down those things without buying suspension. Anything else we have, Donna?
Not on this one.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about this one? Is this ultimately what we're looking for County Road 46A? I mean, do you think we're going to be able to get that confined?
No, the reason why not all these photos are mine, but a lot of these photos are mine. The reason why I'm illustrating this is because, one, the splash park. It would be nice for this community, you know, for all of us that are involved. All the faces that I see here are faces that I see at many meetings. Wouldn't it be nice for us to have a Saturday gathering place that we could enjoy? This happens to be Winter Gardens. This is not necessarily what I would envision, but it does envision the concept of a place to gather. And so Dottie's aptly appropriately named this public gathering place. Okay, so this community will design one of its own. This is Winter Gardens, and it has some features that I would encourage us to think about. Okay. Okay, Dottie. I push next. I can.
Yeah, you're in charge.
You're in charge of enter. Dottie?
Yeah, this one is outdoor seating, and it also has a nice, distinctive fencing, mature trees, and I think the fencing is kind of protecting the trees. Do you want to add?
Again, part of the community I would love to live in would be one that where we don't have to go inside a restaurant, but we can sit outside those times of years that's appropriate. I should qualify this. Sit outside and enjoy. This is we've got a beautiful environment. 9 months out of the year, we ought to take advantage of it. And our community should be designed upon being able to sit outside and have a cup of coffee, have a breakfast or whatever. So, have little gazebos and trellises and those kinds of things.
And this is more outdoor seating. You can see the shade and all the potted plants. It really creates a nice sense of place adjacent to a restaurant.
Mm-hmm. Again, this is a high-end restaurant. They have lots of lush foliage, and we are a community that is built upon agribusiness, and I think we would be well advised to make sure that some of our potted plants would be vegetables, and enjoy our lineage, which is an agricultural community. Okay, Richard.
I think this is an old church in the community that Tim had visited. It's got some neat architectural features that obviously they're trying to preserve. It looks like a historic plaque on the right there.
We're still in Winter Garden?
No, this is actually, some of these photos are taken up in Highlands, North Carolina. And this church is in Highlands. And, I don't know if this is appropriate to say, but again, the community I'd like to live in, I don't care what denomination church it is, but I personally like to have a community that there was a church, because it's, again, part of a gathering place. It's something that unites us. So, and if you look at Winter Garden, there is a big church in downtown Winter Garden. You look at most of the places that are comfortable living. Winter Park, there's a big church. There's several big churches in downtown Winter Park. So it's just me, but, it's, an idea, okay? And this is a historic landmark, Richard? Well, I put that in there, I have to put T.J. Bailey's. Yeah.
But it's also a good illustration of, all the window space and storefronts, and kind of leads to window shopping, and looks like there's a coordinated awning plan in that area, and that kind of ties all the commercial area together.
And come see me for fall specials, okay? All right, Richard.
There's some more outdoor seating and looks like a little shopping area, kind of a raised area, and looks like we could go around and look at windows and ice cream shop there.
There's, I was there on a Friday and Saturday night, and these 2 nights, it would be a conservative estimate that there were 500 people in this area. Dottie, we're going to do another shop shortly. You saw that business, T.J. Bailey's. T.J. Bailey's is up in here. There's probably 8 nice stores here, some restaurants. Catherine, you see, I have a photo of the ice cream shop. That's so important to me. But, and this roadway that you see here, so this is pull-in parking, diagonal parking here. On the back side, there's diagonal parking. And these are 2 parking places each. Now, what is between that parking, this parking, and the parking that is not illustrated down here is, guess what? It's a roadway. It's a through. So once again, we want traffic calming. We don't want people doing 45, 55, 65 miles an hour. They can't do 45 miles an hour because these people are pulling out. And these people are pulling in. Traffic calming. 500 people. I don't know if anybody has been to Highland, North Carolina, but I assure you, it has some of those design standards that I think we would want to memorialize in where we go.
Like they have some different street lights.
Yeah, right, yeah. Again, important note to the street lights, they make sure that at the top of the light doesn't go up. One of the things that made me move out here is you can see all the stars. Something as we do change, and we know that we are going to change, let's make it so we can be able to still see stars. Anything else, Tony, on that?
If I could add something about that one?
Yeah.
The parking is a good buffer from the street. I mean, there's different kinds of parking that provide different levels of safety for the people on the sidewalk. So if you have that row of parking there, it's a visual buffer, it's a safety buffer, so if there is an accident or something, they're not going to go up onto the sidewalk, they're going to hit the cars there.
Yeah,
It's
that's good.
safety feature.
That's a good thing, yeah. And by the way, board members and community, I encourage you, I don't want this to be a monologue, I want you all to raise your hands and say, why would they do that, Tim? Why would they, have parking like that, or that makes sense, so please feel free to talk up. Okay, Richard?
The next one you can really see.
Yeah.
That's the view looking, down the street. It's really unusual to have that pull-through parking in the middle. And then also angled parking along the sidewalk. And that's definitely traffic calming.
And I definitely think that the diagonal parking is much better than parallel parking.
Right.
Safety-wise alone, that's
Right.
like a very, and they don't even teach you this stuff anymore.
Yeah,
You get a
yeah.
lot more parking.
It is a better parking arrangement, but still not as attractive as a big green island in the middle with the trees.
Yeah.
I just don't think that would, something like that in the middle would represent Lake County very well. I think
Yeah.
it looks too much.
And the beautiful thing about this is your comment is, kind of pretty picture, but no, I'm thinking about something else, and let me illustrate that. So everybody needs to think about that. Your point, David, your point is well made. These are ideas for thought, and then sit back and say, no, I know where I can, my vote has got it, or something. Okay. Anything else on that, Dottie? Okay.
And these are some planting areas in the downtown using native plants and vegetation, really attractive.
Yeah, North Carolina. Now, this is back to Winter Garden.
Right. Again, you can see the brick streets and the on-street parking, and there's some outdoor seating there to the right. Looks like maybe some restaurant seating, street furniture, and then to the left is their, a public space where they have a fountain, you can kind of see some
Right.
there.
Over the
And,
point.
yeah, and then it has like some arbor for some shade.
So this is the fountain area, and this is, by the way, this area, this median, this curve delineates the rails to trails that goes through Winter Garden. And how many people here remember Winter Garden before rails to trails? Anybody here remember that area? You do, Catherine, Dottie. I don't want to be hard on Winter Garden, but it really should have been bulldozed. A lot of this area was vacant, just vacant. It was worthless, generated no tax dollars. There was graffiti written over the buildings. It was just really nothing. The rails to trails came through here. I've talked to the economic development people in Winter Garden. This rails to trails brings $5 million to this community. People on any night, Clark, you and I have witnessed this. These seats are taken. Okay, people are having coffee. They're having Danish.
You can't find a parking.
You can't find. Now the good news is behind these buildings and behind those buildings there is parking, but street parking, it's just pretty much non-existent.
Well, there's just a lot of people there.
And that's the good news. And one of the things that we as a community, not just the board, but we as a community, last week we talked somewhat, and there were some people, a little divisiveness, some people sat back and said, you know what, I don't want a lot of people moving up here. I want people to come visit here and go back. Well, the other school of thought is, guess what? How about move up here, live up here, work up here, walk, don't get in your car. Don't have no two-way things, you know what? If I want to get my kids shoes, I want to walk my kids. What a dream come true. Not have to drive my kids. So we need to kind of come to some kind of a consensus, not unanimous, but do we want to make it so people are just visiting here, stopping by and leaving? Because things are going to change regardless. The other thing I wanted to mention, Dottie, is in traditional neighborhood design, which is watercolor and some of that area, the shop owners 200 years ago would live upstairs. So in this building, in theory, Dottie, you're the expert, but in theory, 200 years ago, 100 years ago, the shopkeepers would be upstairs in their residence, and they would come downstairs to sell their, they were haberdashers or, merchants of things. So now, what this is becoming is now these are professional offices. They're attorneys up here, they're CPAs, and those kinds of things. And so we are going to become a community that changes, and are we going to want one that we don't have to drive to Lake Mary to go see an attorney or physician, So, any other comment about this?
Another
Francis.
important thing to keep in mind, and I don't know how it would ever evolve in our community, but that you don't necessarily, you want a lively downtown, that's our village center. You want to be lively, and you don't want people to have to walk a long distance to get to restaurants, or wherever. So, it's better to have the retail, and then the offices not in that, they could be upstairs.
Right.
Or another area, but where we want the most active area to be, both Sorrento and Mount Plymouth. The office, we have to look at where the offices are placed.
Right.
Zoning.
Yeah, we need a lot of thought in this design of this vision of the future. I think that's, Francis, that's a point well made. Okay, any other comments about this community? Any other comments about this? Again, look at, they've integrated a lot of lush plants, that kind of stuff, that creates a little calming.
Well, they do have curb and gutter there.
Yeah.
Which means that you do have underground
Utilities.
stormwater.
Yeah, right. The other thing is they do, this community, they have music piped throughout. So, you know, if you're sitting on one of these chairs enjoying a cup of coffee, you know, you're listening to some nice music. So.
I know this Leesburg has that along the street.
Right. That's right, Francis. Exactly right. Exactly right. Yes. Any other comments?
I just comment that in all of these pictures, one thing that's very calming, you may not have a direct impact on traffic, but the big trees. So
Yeah, I was going to say that also, David. Lots of big trees. Lots of big trees. So, you know, part of Sorrento has a lot of mature trees, but the other part, we need to get them, I think, in the residential component of what we have. You know, again, I think our arbor laws, Dottie, you know them better than I do, but, you know, I think we just have to have a big emphasis.
Tree
Right.
protection.
Yeah, right, yeah. So, any other comments? All right. Richard, you're on. Job well done.
Well, I call this adaptive reuse because this building to me looked like it was something else at one time. I don't know if you know, Tim, what it was, but
I don't,
like
Clark,
maybe
you
a
know
depot
what it
or
was?
something, I don't know, but it
I
looked
don't-
like.
Is this Winter Garden?
Yeah, that's Winter Garden. It's on the south side of the road, and the splash park part is down here. And the, so I
Well,
don't,
they've reused all
Yeah.
this historical buildings. Those
Right.
are very valuable
yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And again, my idea, and Dottie, as a professional, I'm curious to ask you, but when we start getting land use, I mean, people that want to, okay, I want to create a restaurant. I personally would like to see some of this kind of facade, okay, so it would create the illusion that maybe it wasn't here 100 or 150 years ago. You know, maybe some, you know, cracker, Florida cracker kind of stuff also, but have it a little eclectic, but, you know, create the illusion that this is, because we do live in an old historic community, okay, we do.
But it has the wide sidewalks and outdoor seating and
Right.
benches.
Right. Any other comments? Anybody? Richard?
I believe this is also a Winter Garden.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the brick streets and the awning, they have kind of tied that whole building together. Probably have offices upstairs, a lot of what you
Exactly.
mentioned earlier, and the windows, you know, the shop windows.
They even got some of the original signage.
Yeah, that's what I was going to point out. This is, David, this is an old GE electric sign. Now, by the way, GE Electric is not downstairs, it's a bike shop. But in their signage, they wanted to sit back and say, let's create the illusion of a 1950s GE appliance store. How about that? It's not one, but create the illusion.
Well, it used to be.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
They retained the old stuff.
Right. So, you know, I think that we would not be able to, there wasn't a GE place here, or was it? I don't know. But, again, I'm not opposed to, you know, if we create codes that do that, sit back and say, let's say a developer sat back and said, well, I want to build this structure, and I'm going to put restaurants in here and professional shops. I think that our design should sit back and say, and so congratulations to you on your vision, but we want to, you know, have maybe a signage that would imply that this building was here a long time ago for a different purpose.
A question, the streets were brick originally, weren't they?
Yes. They were originally brick, and the other thing is over here, I did not capture it in this shot, but over here is a farmer's market, and again, this particular morning, there was, I mean, you don't see any parking places available. You just don't. This particular morning, the farmer's market was very busy, and I saw as many people chatting with their neighbors as purchasing fruits and that kind of stuff. Again, that is a lifestyle. Betty, and you and I don't see each other often enough, but it would be great to see you and Frank, you know, at a farmer's market on Saturday.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any other comments?
And this is the splash park you were talking about.
Right.
Certainly attracts a lot of families and then people to sit under the shade and watch the kids play. So it's, I think, a centerpiece in their downtown.
I've seen people in there at night, I see them there in the wintertime. It really is an attractor.
Now, Tavares also has integrated, and I think has Eustis done a splash park?
Eustis, I don't know if they've done it yet, I saw them on today.
Okay.
It's a plan that's in the works.
Yeah.
And they included a splash park.
Right.
It looked like a great plan.
Right.
If you've been to Farron Park, it's a great park, it's right there on the lake, but it could be improved. And one of the things was they're going to do a splash park,
Right.
and there's an awkward area for pedestrians where the pavilion is, the pool area. You can't get through. They're going to do a new improved connection there. So if you go online, you go to City of Eustis, and I think it was Farron Park. It was right under Farron Park somewhere.
Right.
And they had the whole plan laid out, and included this and some other great things.
It's great. So again, as we think about our future, a lot of the communities are doing this kinds of things. It's great for the youth. It's a great diversion for the kids. So the adults, you see a lot of youth here. You don't see a lot of adults. The adults are back here at the cheese, places that are selling the Amish cheese and the honeys and breads and fresh breads and that kind of stuff. So, it's an idea that we might think about.
Well, and I tell people about splash parks too, the benefits aside from the kids with the, splashing around. It really, for a community, something like this attracts in younger families. They see this as a place to go,
Right.
meet, do things. And on top of that, if you're a grandmother or somewhat older homeowner and you always want your kids to come visit, you're bringing grandkids. Well, I know when I visited my grandkids, my grandmother was nothing to do. The only advantage was she was a great cook. So I love that part. But the rest of the time, you're like, there's nothing to do. Well, Grandma's going to love the fact this park is there, and she'll buy a house in this community to live here
Right.
because her kids will come
Kids,
visit.
yeah, come visit.
And then they'll go home.
Right. Yeah, thank God. Yeah.
And I agree. I mean, the times we've watched kids, my wife and I, and we've gotten up to Tavares to go to the splash pad.
Yeah.
And, hey, we have to go there.
Yeah.
Because
It's a long haul.
in this
Yeah.
community, we eat lunch there,
Right.
that type of thing, so that's taken away from the,
Right. Yeah, the economic stimulus, yeah.
It's working for them.
It's working great for them. Once again.
I go watch the train and watch the airplanes. It's
Yeah.
a great place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once again, a lot of oak trees. The lighting has that, limited.
The LED lighting, the color change lighting.
Well, no, these lights make it so that they don't light the skies.
Oh, yeah.
So-
Well, they light the trees, though.
I don't see those there, but they might.
Oh, well, it's not, I was talking about Farron Park.
Oh, yeah.
You know what's cool about that park is it's a round-the-clock park. In the daytime, it's got the splash park, brings the kids, and at night, it's got some nice higher-end restaurants, and it's got music playing, and it's like a nice romantic place to take your wife or girlfriend, or both. And,
Yeah.
Whichever you want to retain.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it's a really nice place to walk around at night, and it's safe.
Right.
It's got pretty skies and beautiful lakefront. It's what people buy into Tavares for.
Right.
I mean,
All right, so again, lots of trees, a good place for the kids to be, and big emphasis, lots of gathering for the adults back here and that kind of stuff, like outside dining and that kind of stuff. Any community input on this? Any questions? Richard?
So is this the West Orange Trail?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's former railroad right away, paved trail.
Right.
Canopy effect, the trees, of course, that brings in a lot of hikers.
Yeah, $5.5 million flows directly into Winterberg as a byproduct of the Rails to Trails. Everybody in this room understands that we will have a Rails to Trails program where you will be able to ride a bicycle from Mount Dora to Sorrento, from Sorrento to Seminole County, from Sorrento to Apopka. That bike trail will be there. And it will be a meaningful economic stimulus for this community. A lot of that area in Sorrento is covered, just like this is covered. If you go from basically Lisa's and on the south side where that rail bed is, look at how much of that area is covered. It's beautiful. A lot of the area back in here, Mr. David, you own some of the rails to trails. So it will be a meaningful economic stimulus. It will be a meaningful transportation asset. People won't have to get in their cars, get in their trucks to go from point A to point B. Any comments about rails to trails and that mobility? Everybody understands. Chairman Campion has gotten here. Any comments about rails to trails or anything?
No, I made a similar observation about the canopy that already exists to a certain degree along several of the railroad beds, thinking that it would look very similar to what you see on the West Forest Trail. I will note, though, that you mentioned this is a transportation asset, and I know the transportation planners like to think of it that way, but it's recreation and it's health, and it's fitness, and you know what I mean? I don't really see us quite yet in the U.S. hopping on our bikes to go to work, but you know what? There may be people that do. I have a friend out in Grand Island that says that if there was a trail and he used the days where he worked, that he would ride his bike.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, maybe some people will, but in general, people like to get more about recreation, and it brings in dollars because people do this on the weekends and they do it with their families, and they want a place to stop and have lunch, and you know, and it obviously it impacts your marketability as an area because people like to live near these trails because it's a nice amenity.
The homes, you know, I've got this development that I'm doing on 46 Redtail. The buyer of it, he says, man, this is great because you're going to be part of the rails to trails. We want to develop here because our residents will be able to go to Mountain Joy. And all right, any other comments?
This is neighborhood like this.
No, well, actually, everybody understands the county owns, let's say, 300 acres south of 46.
Is it 300 acres? It's a lot.
It's about two to three. As my property is all this land over here. I bought out here when this was cattle land. I worked for cattle land. This was all cows. I moved all cows with you know that, with my horses, and I moved, this was all cattle land. Well, when Heathrow came in here, this was just icky marshland. It had no water, visible water, because it was all marsh. It was reeds and, heat and all that kind of stuff. So, but it had been like that. But because it had been dredged out, it was no longer like that. So what Heathrow did is they just dragged the weeds out of here and revitalized the lake, okay? And you remember this, you and I remember this. It was pretty, remember that guy Billy Billy would come out here with his four-wheel and he would just tear it all up because there was no lake. He would just see how far he could get his truck stuck until he got a tractor pulling it out. And so this is illustrated for 2 points. The one point is there's 300 acres south of here off State Road 46 that can be, if we are allowed to reclaim that lake bed. It was a lake bed, Jack McDonald talks about what a beautiful lake that was. But we as a community, would it be nice to be able to go to a 200-acre park that looks similar to this? Everybody look at this rookery. You know how many hundreds of parks? Are there hundreds of birds in here?
Yeah, every morning it's like that.
Yeah,
They're full of it.
it's incredible. Again, we're promoting that environmental life that we have. So hopefully you continue to give us great support. But if that is an option for us.
That's outside the CRA, though, isn't
Yes, yeah, but I'm illustrating a point not about the CRA, but I want to be able, there's actually reclaimed, there is lake bed within our CRA that we could,
Okay.
but
Because,
also.
yeah, that particular area, you know, there's a lot of issues with regard to the people that live on those old lake beds, you know, that abut the old lake beds. And that's going to be a delicate situation
Right.
because you want to look after the people that's where their home is, and they have particular concerns about opening that up for a lot of outside traffic, if you will, you know. So they want to stay secluded, and then on the other hand, it's a public area, so how much do we open it up versus how much do we honor, you know, and I think it's really important to make sure that we're looking out for the people that actually own the land that abuts
Right.
that. So that's going to be a delicate issue, and that's going to be something in the future that the county will be working on with community meetings with the people that
Right.
own the property right there.
And that's basically enough from the lake.
This section, the area I'm talking about is south of, it's, that neighborhood lake. Yeah, right.
You know what's funny about this particular situation? Is the people who live in that community have houses around that lake that's been fixed up. There's a path, a nice path around it. And those guys pay $1,000 a month to live in there to have that.
Well, I think Mr. Crosby will tell you it's a little more than $1,000 a month.
But Clark, they chose that.
Yeah.
All right, so somebody that lives somewhere else that's not open to public trails, they chose that too. So that's where this balance comes in.
Right.
Where we got to be really careful that we're not trying to impose
Right.
upon them something that they didn't choose for their neighborhood.
Right.
And I think at the same time, like I said before, with the lake coming into the county, you know, that's going to be the gateway. And
Right.
we're looking at it being, we're representing Lake County. And what better way to
Yeah.
do that is with a beautiful lake. You know,
Right.
and doing that.
No,
And
I
it
mean-
has to be, you know, a win-win situation, I understand that.
Right.
On both sides. But it is you know, that is why people move to Lake County, to enjoy the lake out here.
Exactly.
Having that as a community resource, as recreation, is really important to all of the communities.
That's right, and that reminds me, Commissioner Campion, I noticed that we're putting in the Wakaiba across from Captain's house. And it looks like there's a retention area, and it looks like it's rectangular.
In our neighborhood.
Yeah, it's a rectangular, and in Lake County, I thought that we were just gonna do free form-based retention.
Well, I thought that's how they were designed.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Catherine, are you familiar with the one I'm talking
I know
about?
what it's starting to look like.
It's
so-
starting to look
Yeah, so
rectangular.
maybe you can check on it.
All right.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Yeah. All right, Dottie, community, any other comments about this? Comments?
This is the crossing of the West Orange Trail in Alaska.
Right,
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a
Right,
really
I know.
beautiful, elaborate
Yeah,
crossing.
yeah, and I know last time we talked about how we, if we do have trails come through here, how we're gonna get them across
Right.
46. I think this is a pretty good example
Right.
of something that's done really well.
Over 46,
Right.
but actually, if the traffic is slow.
Well,
down,
I think probably what would happen is there would be kind of a growth. Initially, Tom said, I don't think we're gonna need it initially, but then when we get higher densities and we have more people here, even though we won't have fast traffic underneath it, because the reality is cars down here are not going, 65 miles an hour. It's just heavy traffic. Okay?
I think
Yeah.
the speed limit there is 35.
Right, yeah.
something like
So it is, this would probably be 30 years in the future for this community, not in the immediate future. Everybody will be able to go from rails to trails to a town-like center, and not use this for probably 30 years. But ultimately, we need to plan for the future.
Well, and getting across 46, I know I can tell you as a parent of 5,
Mhm.
we go on the bike trails with our children, and regardless of the speeds of the road, that would be a major concern for us.
Right.
I know going down to Lake Marion, if you're going into where Silver
Yeah.
Lake Park crosses over,
Yeah.
even though from that parking area there coming over, that is a concern.
Yeah.
And I think that having a safe way to get from one side to the other, especially depending on, because the
Right.
community park by Sorrento Elementary
Right.
is on the north side.
Right.
You're going to want to go over the road and be in those areas. I think that that needs to be.
Right, yeah. Leslie, do you know if we can get any federal money for pedestrian overpass if we have a need when the Wakava Parkway is up and going, could we get some federal money for an overpass, a pedestrian overpass?
Well, it's really complicated, and as far as where your point of entry is to
Right.
try to get funding for certain things,
Yeah.
this is not the kind of thing that you could go to the federal government and say, we petitioned them for. Okay,
Right.
you would have to fit under some program that they do that has to do with either pedestrian friendly or, that type of thing, and that would probably then come under our MPO.
Right.
And so the best way to get an answer to that would be to talk to TJ Fish with MPO.
And we are going to have TJ, we're going to invite him to come talk to us.
Because TJ understands kind of how you bring the money, the federal money back locally,
Okay.
because these programs are very prescribed, and if you don't,
Right.
know where to get in there to ask for it.
Right.
I believe that this was funded partially with the DOT grants.
I knew John Micah because his transportation talked about doing a bunch of stuff in a pocket, because I was in a meeting with he and the mayor, so I don't know if this was some of his money, but.
Yeah, and that's
I think you're
that's 441.
Right.
So you got a US highway.
Right. So it might have been some of
because
John's
of
stuff,
that.
yeah. So, okay.
I mean, we're gonna have to be able to go across at some point,
Yeah.
or under.
Right.
Which I think would be much.
It just seems
And
to be,
economic, well, just for the environment.
Well, they say even under is sometimes easier, cheaper.
it just seems that if there would be improvements to 46, that, it's not widened, there's a center median for a safe area, the speed limit's now 25 or 30, there's street trees, there's a designated sidewalk. It just seems that, it's just like the new town center, you would be comfortable walking across the
Right.
street. And there's something to be said for pedestrians to be at street level. It's ideal for them to be there. But I guess I just see, in my mind, I was thinking that that's what y'all were envisioning, was more a streetscape improvement at 437 and 46, or that would take care of.
And that would make you feel, you would be
Real
safe to
safe.
be able to just cross the road, because you brought the speed down,
Right.
you added
Right.
these enhancements, and would probably be a lot cheaper than
Right.
trying to go over.
And Francis, I want to clarify once again, I am specifically throwing out a lot of things, and I want you all at our next meetings to sit back and say, there's something I want to illustrate, just one or two slides I want to illustrate, because this is just priming the pump for ideas. So I'm not saying we need to do this or that. I would like you all to sit back and say, I like some of these things I don't. Okay? They're just ideas. These are not decisions, yes. Any other comments about this? Okay, Thomas?
And this is the same property, but you can, it's kind of a gateway into their commercial area too.
Right.
But what I really like about this is if you look up on the right side, Papa is, I think they're the indoor foliage captain in the world, and they've incorporated the ferns, those metal ferns, into the design, and I think that's a neat,
I never saw that connection.
Yeah.
it's a neat way to, because they have a big one in front of their city hall,
Yeah.
and then I think they're incorporating that into their streetscape.
Yeah.
So that kind of went back to our discussion about, a theme for this area, whether it be equestrian or whatever. But just some ideas to incorporate those design elements.
Right.
And I kind of include this kind of as an idea for more along the lines of good design. What I think is good design, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the ones that go across Lake Mary Boulevard.
Oh, yeah.
Those are just kind of flat and big pieces of concrete up in the air.
Right.
I don't care at all for those too much compared to
Right.
something like this, so, there's 30 years in the, I need
Yeah.
something to think
Down the
about,
road,
the
yeah.
standards we need to establish now.
Think about it. And again, there's you know, we're going to be talking about these things, and they might be way down the road, but we're creating this vision for the tomorrow. So, yeah.
Yeah, let's hope the road is never like that.
Exactly. Exactly.
And,
say a
turning
prayer.
lanes on 46 and Central.
Exactly. Yeah, and one of the things we studied, and Donnie, I don't know if you want to mention this, but when Miller Selling did the framework study for the Mount Plymouth Sorrento area, they pointed out that Apopka could have been like Winter Park, but they allowed the main thoroughfare to go through their downtown area, which destroyed the old beautiful shops. And Mount Dora, Catherine, you might remember, Dottie, you might remember, Mount Dora used to have old 441 going through downtown. I remember Greyhound buses and citrus trucks going through semi-trailer trucks going through downtown. Now, by the way, could anybody imagine what downtown Mount Dora would look like today if it was the main thoroughfare? And yeah, it would look like this. So we need to anticipate, you know, diverting the through traffic and just having good stuff. Any other comments about this, Thomas? I like that. That's a great photo.
And then you can put like the welcome to whatever area
Right.
that is a designated area to combine
Right.
cities or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
You can bungee jump off there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Or free dive.
Another view of the.
Yeah.
I do have to say that the Apopka looks a lot better than it used to.
You bet. They're doing a nice job. Yeah.
And that's kind of my next thing here with, mostly what I was looking at, this was the signage. This is the one right there on 441 in Apopka.
Right.
The building is set back, and as we were talking about, you know, you might want to create more of a city feel where the buildings are up more toward the
Right.
street.
Parking in the back.
That sign, you know, it's rough.
Yeah.
All as they can
Street
make it.
go with the design regulations, they take care of that, right? We've had
Right.
that question before.
Right, if you look at the next picture,
Yeah.
see all the lines,
Thomas is there.
overhead lines you can see, and then
Right.
Now, contrast that sign versus this sign, and again, this is like the design standards I think, you know, we need to think about, and,
Right.
you know, signs that might not be more than 8 or 10 feet high.
Right.
No big-
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, big emphasis on this because, again, you go to nice communities and they're going to this kind of a thing, not what Apopka did on the big pole. So if we have consensus and if the board and if this is what some of the community wants, then candidly, we will mandate a nicer, more eye-appealing signage. I think that's a great illustration.
And Francis, like you said, about Apopka getting better with their design standards, I mean, this is the, you know, the type of thing they're doing there, getting away from that downtown McDonald's look over to the Rock Springs,
This looks like what you see in Hilton, in fact, I think their
Yep.
signs are even lower.
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
all have a base instead of.
Yep.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And one thing I can add is that sometimes it's hard when you put things like this into place because of the hardship that you create on existing businesses. And a lot of times there's an outcry, you give them a period of time to change over, and then when you hit that time when they've got to switch over, their businesses are really upset. And so I think there are lessons that have been learned in other places about how you do this, and that you can use your CRA funding
Right.
as a grant
Right.
so that they could actually petition to have the funds to put their new signage in, and then
Right.
that would make it that much more palatable,
Yeah.
because they have access to CRA
Right.
funds to do that.
They can improve their property by using some of our money.
They just have
Which-
in Umatilla.
Which is great by us, and by the way, I drove through there Saturday, it looks beautiful.
They're making a lot of progress.
Yeah, it looks beautiful.
And they're just two billboards, right, to deal with.
Right,
Two billboards
Oh, along 46 here.
on 46.
right,
One smaller one and then one here.
right, right. Exactly. All right, any other comments about signage, the community, board members? I like this, Thomas.
This is basically just another example of the same thing. I think we know the Dollar General. And, this is what Apopka has done there, so you can see the building standards that they're establishing.
Right.
There's a few more new buildings, I think a Family Dollar, and O'Reilly Auto Parts,
Yeah,
which,
exactly.
although they do appear to be metal buildings, they've really finished up the outside of them with brick.
With fascia.
And really made them,
Yeah.
look a lot better than
Right.
a metal building.
Yeah, Butler Building, yeah, does everybody understand his comment on that? Yeah, okay, good.
And good news on that, the Board of County Commissioners are going to be considering commercial design criteria that would apply across the county. And I think we're going to be talking about that maybe in the next month or two, what's going to be on the agenda. So that would, you may want to do something in addition to that, but at
Right.
least if you get support on the board, there will be at least a minimum standard, which we don't have
Right.
now, you know.
We need to.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so for example, the store that's up here, that has a big long wall
Right.
that faces 46,
Oh,
that seems like it,
The new building?
yeah.
Yeah.
The new
It's turned on its
criteria,
side.
Right next to the
the
post
new
office.
criteria would make them, like, put a door, and we think it looked like it was kind of
The
front.
illusion.
Give the
Yeah.
illusion that it was
Right.
facing out, or,
Right.
address some things like that.
No, I don't like it.
No, I don't like it either. So I'm happy that that is happening in this community. I suspect we'll
And if
do.
we can't get it countywide, at least we could maybe have the
Exactly.
CRA embrace it.
Exactly. Any other comments about this community or board members? Thomas, I like this. Okay. All right, okay. Before I leave this, again, I'm going to emphasize yet again, everybody send to Dottie, send to Linda some photos of things that you like, the notation on the photos. So next week, we can still spend 15 minutes and kind of drill down this vision, what you think you would like to see. All right, Dottie, we ready to go to the next part of our meeting?
Done with this, I'll turn the lights back on.
Okay. Thank you, David.
Okay, at our last meeting, we talked about redevelopment goals and objectives, and we talked about a monthly plan, and there was a lot of discussion. And so I took that discussion, my notes, and Linda's minutes, and I just drafted some redevelopment goals and objectives for you to look at.
It's on page 3.
Yeah, and it's, well, actually, it's not,
This one?
yes, it should be at
Okay.
your seat.
Okay, yeah.
It was not as part of your agenda. So if you want to just quickly talk about those and maybe spend some time looking at those before the next meeting, if you'd like.
I have a question on this. There's a, well, I think it's on the back or somewhere about, redevelopment aging structure in the commercial district. Is that referring to just commercial buildings? Or would we have the opportunity for residential structure?
Well, I guess I would consider 46 a commercial district, but are you asking about having that apply outside of that area? I mean, for
No,
residential?
in that corridor, but there may not be all businesses there. Maybe some existing residential structures that need some help at some time.
Yeah, it might be a different program, because, usually you have a different program for residential than you do commercial, but certainly any kind of grant program or working with the county to try to help improve those properties would be appropriate too.
What about having your residential broken out into two parts? You could have your residential where it's in a really visible location on 46 versus your residential that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Off in a-
So that you have
Right.
another category because you know that that's making a much greater visual impact on
Right.
the community, the ones that are right down the road. I think I
And the density will be greater. Yeah.
And I, just as a side note on that, I went to Umatilla because I live in Umatilla, and I talked to them because of years, obviously, that was the CRA, we can talk
Right.
about that. And that's been in existence now for about 10 years.
Mhm.
There's a little bit different situation, and I that's why we have to be very careful about where we set our bar as far as the economy is concerned, once that starts growing.
Right.
Because now they only see about $100,000 yearly coming into their CRA, so
Right.
there's really not a lot of funding there.
Right.
But I did speak with them, and they had an initial grant with complete just grants given with no match dollars on that. And then after that, they went to do a dollar for dollar match on their CRA. And then they had given some credits for it if they had paid $2,000 in taxes in, then they got that first $2,000 to be able to utilize in the property without having to do any kind of match kind of thing.
Yeah.
So there's some options. I didn't know really how the funding was going to work in a CRA, so for anybody that doesn't, is not real familiar with that, it's important to know that. And they have limited plans, because they have to base that on the money that's coming in. I believe strongly that we won't have those issues, that we'll
agree
be
with you.
having,
Although we need to be aware of it, but I don't think that they will be. I think that when we get up and going, we will have funding, but we need to be aware of it.
so that may help with the residential area, there too.
Right.
Depending on how long they've been there,
Right.
paying into the tax dollars, there should be some kind of benefit there for our long-term residents versus somebody that might be moving in just renting, that might have been there 6 months or a year.
It's really how you set the program up. There's a lot of different options of how you can use that TIP money to encourage redevelopment. In fire match or not, today, so that sounds like they've been pretty creative in how they've come up
That was
with it.
interesting.
Yeah.
They sat on theirs for a long time and didn't get a development plan really operational. And so when they began a few years ago, they had a whole bunch to start with, which was kind of nice the way that it had built up. And that helped them get it going. But like you said, now they don't have as much on an annual basis.
You all, when you got your minutes, this was in the minutes?
Well, the minutes went over a lot of this. I just
Right.
put this
Put
in a
this together,
different
okay.
format.
One of the things that I would like to leave the door open, we have this draft of goals and objectives. I would like, again, community members, commissioner, everybody look at this. I'm fearful that there's something meaningful that could have been left out that we have. So look at it, think about what your vision and the community you want to live in, and make sure that it is, memorialized in this. So look at this closely and think about the various things, and if we need to add to this, we will.
Absolutely. It's a draft, very preliminary,
Right.
based on discussion, and some things you may want to take out, some things you may want to add. No problem with that at all, but this will give me the basis once we get it the way you want it to write the
For the
redevelopment
document,
plan.
right,
Was is this what we started before with our goals, or is
This
this?
is
a little
our
bit
goals.
different?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
because we mentioned utility
Yeah.
and transportation, are they already in here?
They are.
You just grouped them differently?
I did.
And then lifestyle, you mentioned lifestyle?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Parks
So
and
again,
Recreation.
everybody look at this and make sure that this is, that we add whatever things that are obviously missing, any neighbors, any friends, get them involved, invite them here. Yes, Maggie?
Do you have copies of that we can have?
Yes.
Of the goals?
Yes.
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 You can have my copy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we
So we're happy to share, but look at that, okay? All right, anything else on that, Dottie? Okay. Open discussion. Community members first. Any community member have any comments about the direction we're heading, anything that we're overlooking, or things that you're uncomfortable with?
I just think we need to go full speed because I'm getting old.
Yeah, we better get going. I'm not feeling good. Yeah.
When you mentioned what's going to happen 30 years from now, that doesn't include me.
Yeah, no, I know, yeah, or me, yeah. But are you all relatively happy, community, are you relatively happy with the direction that we're heading?
I think it has to
do a lot with what we work with the 10 years.
Right.
I mean, I feel
Yeah.
today.
Betty Ann worked long and hard on the framework study, so she was a godsend there. And yeah, this is a progression, and Maggie, hopefully we'll move a little bit faster. I will tell you this, but I bet Dottie sits back and says, Tim, you're going pretty fast here. You're clicking along. So.
You know, I think what'll help too is the folks that are here and know what we're trying to accomplish is to take it back to your friends and relatives, and a lot of folks that don't come to meetings and the ones that do finally when they show up for some reason don't like what's being done, but they weren't in the planning of it to understand it. So go talk to your friends that there's a bunch of them that don't want anything to change.
Right.
So.
Right. And one of the reasons why we had Gigi's provide us free pizza and drinks and that kind of stuff is to promote the community to be involved. And with that said, should we do that again and invite more people? Because we're going through meaningful stuff here. And a year from now, if we don't have this community involved, you know what? There's going to be people that look at you and look at you and say, you voted for that? And so my thinking is create this kind of open, encourage the community to have input, you know, have pizza, have drinks, and I think that we'll be happier with the bigger picture.
So I would definitely agree with that. I think not only might we get some good ideas, but we'll foster a lot of enthusiasm in the community.
Yeah.
People will go back and say, "Oh, I saw what the community could look like."
Yeah.
They start talking to other people before you know it. Everybody's excited about it.
Yeah. So with that said, do pizza again next month?
If we know about it, I ate before I came.
Okay. All right. So or is this? I mean, should we do that or not? Because. Okay, all right, do that, all
I
right.
think to do it, you have to go back and probably shop at Gigi's sometime in the next month and tell them thanks for the pizza.
Yeah, and I would, they have been very accommodating to us, and Dave Croson, you have been very accommodating to us.
Well, I just opened the door and
Yeah.
Gigi's Pizza.
Yeah, can't beat that deal.
Along with getting the community involved, I wondered if these are posted anywhere where.
On the web, the county on the
Well, I
website.
meant around the area, like North Plymouth and Sorrento area. I thought people would be interested in this. You know, I'm working on
That's something
something.
you could do. It's pretty cheap now to do some of the mailings to the post office, but the door-to-door program, which
Well,
you might sense an
Yeah.
informational piece.
Well, Francis, what we've talked about in one of our earlier meetings is have a semi-annual big community meeting at the elementary school. And we didn't commit to anything, but we talked about maybe in October and one in March.
That'd be good. If
But-
they know that we're working on something,
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing.
But we would have big posters of that at that meeting, but, you know,
The chamber has stuff posted in there.
Right.
So,
right.
I would like to say that I'm particularly pleased with the direction and where you're all working and each one of you serving on this committee. The easy thing is deciding everything that we want to have happen. But then the toughest part's going to be the priorities. And what do we, for instance, you mentioned the curb and gutter. You've got to have utilities to deal with.
Stormwater.
Stormwater, and stormwater particularly, and so those are some of the tough things that, but you're going to have to prioritize, and that
Right.
comes in time. And you may want to use some of the ideas that you had when you had a meeting, you may want to do it before, I'm not sure when you had in mind, Tim, but to get the community to actually prioritize what they think is most important.
Well, we had talked,
Involvement.
Dottie and I had talked about, and I know Clark's familiar with this, Dottie's familiar with it, and I think Leslie and some of y'all are. Remember when what's Tallahassee, DCA. Remember when they did, and the Regional Planning Council did, How Shall We Grow? It was a wonderful education thing, and Dottie said that she was going to see if there was a different version of that, because we didn't want to create the illusion that we want to grow, but we want to create the demand. Change is happening, and we need to, it was an educational thing. So what Dottie and I have talked about, and again, thanks Dottie, on working together with me, but, you know, semi-annually, have an educational component, and we bring this community together, and we talk about some of the things that DCA and the Regional Planning Council and the county commissioners deal with. And so this community is better educated, and so when they sit back and say, I want no change, they understand that, well, that's not going to happen, so.
Yeah, I think you've got to be careful that you don't go down the road of, I think you have to be careful from a planning standpoint.
That's what Dottie has said. That's what Dottie said, yeah.
Yeah, because then everybody starts posturing based on their position on growth versus no growth versus, you know,
Right.
and then we get into these camps, you know,
Right.
as opposed to let's find the stuff that we know we can agree upon. I think most people agree that they want 46 to look nicer, and they want it to
Right.
be more pedestrian friendly, and they want,
Right.
you know, so we
Right.
know we found some common ground. So I would just be cautious of
Well, if you're
Maybe just
available, you
limiting
and
the-
Dottie and I work on what our semi-annual meeting will be.
I think a community meeting where you get everybody together,
That's what we're
as
gonna
long
do.
as we, limiting
Yeah.
the scope so that
Right.
it doesn't get out of hand and then
Right.
actually take you backwards. I do have a question for staff, if we could look into when would the board have to set the trust fund, or I forget the proper terminology.
May, next May?
I'm hoping to get it in March.
In March?
Or March or April.
Okay.
It needs to get to the property appraiser before June. So.
Now, can it be done, isn't it up to the property appraiser and the tax collector if you get in between like January and March, if you get in by December 31st? I thought there was some requirement that they had to put it on the roll.
My understanding is we need to get it to them by, I think, June, so it can start the following year.
Okay,
So-
all right, let's just make sure we hone in on that,
Yeah.
and then I think at that point, I would recommend that the committee come together to make a presentation to the board, to hopefully get the board's
Support.
support. Because if you don't get it that round, then you're talking about waiting a whole other year.
Right.
And then if the values start to go up, you've lost that.
Right.
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 So I thought March would give us a little cushion there to
Uh-huh.
have a couple meetings.
Is there any milestones we need to think about between now and March that we need to hit?
It's really just get the goals and objectives, and so I can start drafting the document, and I'll get that out to you.
Yeah, because we have to have the development.
Right.
We can't
Right.
set up the fund.
Right.
Right.
To adopt
That
the
thing-
redevelopment plan.
Yeah, and then you can always come back and refine it and add to it,
Yeah.
at least the basic.
Right.
It can be amended anytime you need to.
Yeah, yeah. And that's kind of what the framework we're creating.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. All right, good point. Anything else, any other questions from the community or board members?
I think if we're planning on the meeting, and based on the timeframes that we're looking at them in March, and making sure that this is drafted, and we've gotten resolutions on our level, as we talked about, a specific meeting for each of these categories. So we need to be thinking about when we're planning this out, maybe in our next meeting, to kind of have that laid out, to say, okay, this is the meeting that we're working on, you know, number one,
Right.
economic development, so that we make sure that we're hitting all of those points, and giving us a meeting maybe before that March deadline to kind of work out any kinks, and ensuring that we're having enough time, you know,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
the last thing we want to do is run out of
Right.
time to do that.
I think that's a point we'll make this year. Any other open discussion items? Everybody has homework. We need photos. We need everybody to review this document for its entirety. Anything missing in this document, do it. I want to thank the county staff. I want to thank the chairman for bringing this together, community for you being here, and certainly the board members, and most importantly, Gigi's. They have been great. Do thank them the next time you go by there and do business. If there are any last minute things,
Or we have the next meeting date,
we've already set that for,
September?
right,
Seventeenth?
17th?
Yeah, September.
September the 17th, so everybody note that on the calendars, pizza and soft drinks. Invite a guest, invite 2 guests, shoot the works. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye. Thank you, everybody, for a great meeting. Thank you.
Hey, somebody take your pizza home.
Second.